What's going on, everybody? We've got a great guest for you today, the Ranger angler, Quinn Hollingsworth. We're going to talk about fishing in the 30A area, fishing around Santa Rosa Beach, Destin area. He is a guide there that has a great guide service. I've fished with him before myself. If you're going to be in the area, you definitely want to look him up. He's also a former Ranger, and he is doing some great work with my friend Captain Scott Brown to get service members not only out on the water, but also to show them how they can establish a career in the outdoors. So great conversation with Quinn today. If you want to support the podcast, there's a lot of ways that you can do it. And we really, really do appreciate you listening to the podcast. Sharing the podcast with others is one way that you can help support the podcast. If you hear something on this, or you're going to go to 30A and you listen to this podcast and you got a buddy that goes to 30A all the time, pass them over this podcast so they can hook up with Quinn. If you like what you hear, share it. If you also want to support the podcast in a financial way, the best way to do that is to get the best coffee in the world delivered to your door. Go to blackriflecoffee.com. Use the code BLASTOFF25. You can get a 25% discount on the first month of the coffee club and all kinds of other stuff like a awesome Yeti mug. Make sure you use the code BLASTOFF25 because that's how you get the best discount that they offer. All right, on to the show with the Ranger Angler. Here we go.
What's up, guys? This is Quinn Hollingsworth, aka the Ranger Angler, and you're listening to the Tom Rowland podcast.
Quinn, the Ranger Angler. Right on. I'm glad to have you on the podcast. How you doing, man?
Hey, appreciate it, Tom. Good to see you again. I'm super stoked to be here.
Yeah. Well, you had an awesome day of fishing around the 30A area when I was down there visiting. I got to go out fishing with you and my friend Chip. It was a great day, man. Have you been fishing a lot lately?
Yeah, so we fished, of course, as fortune would have it. I'm fishing with Tom Rowland, and we get a 30-degree temperature drop overnight. So it was an unusual cold front for our day fishing, but I had a blast with you. You know, conversations were priceless, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah, kind of from there, kind of swung right into, summertime fishing, and all the kids are out of school, so everybody's vacationing in 30A. So it was go, 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 pretty much from April all the way up until Labor Day, typical tourist season. But super grateful for all those people that come and visit and come and fish with me because, that's how I make my living.
Man.
But yeah, a lot of fishing. Finally settling down a little bit. I've got a lot of October booked up, coinciding with fall break. So I'm excited because fall is my favorite time of the year to fish up here, fall and spring. But fall definitely is like our Super Bowl of fishing. So excited to get out there.
All right. Well, we're going to learn all about what happens in the fall here in just a minute. But before we get started, going to go through the hot seat, which is a series of questions that are simple questions, either or whatever you prefer. And the first thing that kind of comes to your mind. So you ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right. East Coast or West Coast?
East Coast.
Early fishing memory or trip that made you a lifetime angler?
Fishing Mosquito Lagoon growing up with my granddad. Nice. I can't pinpoint one, but that's where it was.
Nice. East Coast or West Coast of Florida?
Oof. Long time ago, I would have said East Coast, but live on the West Coast. I'm going to say West Coast now.
Okay. Spinning rod, conventional or fly?
Spinning.
Inshore or offshore?
Inshore.
River or lake?
River.
Would you have a reptile as a pet?
No.
Me either. Coffee, tea, or energy drink?
I'm going to go sugar-free Red Bull.
Okay. Mountains or beaches?
Beaches.
Favorite military movie?
It's a tough one, but I'm going to have to say Black Hawk Down.
Nice. Good choice. Winter Olympics or Summer Olympics?
Winter Olympics.
Okay, going out on a limb here to see if you are a wrestling fan. Favorite professional wrestler of all time?
Favorite professional wrestler of all time? I'm going to have to say probably Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, that's a good one. Also, possibly favorite amateur wrestler of all time, Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, he was good.
All right, sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
Best catch in your career?
Best catch in my career. Over 50-inch redfish that I got a 86 year old Marine Corvette on. So that was my
Nice.
one of my most
An
memorable catches.
86-year-old Marine Corvette catches that fish?
We hadn't caught anything slow day. I had, bottom of the ninth, and I throw out a popping cork with one big shrimp at this point. It immediately goes under, and he fought it like a champ. It was really a team effort, but yeah, it was pretty special.
Fantastic. A movie that always makes you laugh?
Movie that always makes me laugh. Super bad.
Yeah, it does. Text or calls?
I'm a call guy.
Last book you remember reading or your favorite book?
Last book I remember reading was, well, I'm gonna go favorite book, which is Last of the Mohicans.
Nice. Rock country or other?
Country.
Okay. Instagram or Twitter?
Definitely Instagram.
One thing you're afraid of?
One thing I'm afraid of, heights, believe it or not.
I believe it. Office, Friends, or Parks and Rec?
Definitely The Office.
Me too. One piece of technology you rely on heavily other than your phone?
Other than my phone, piece of technology, other than my phone. I'm gonna have to go computer.
Okay. Favorite fish?
Redfish.
Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
Audio, paper, or Kindle for books?
Audiobooks.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate.
Fishing with clients or fishing by yourself?
Fishing with clients.
One piece of advice that has served you well?
Treat every day like it's your last, because you never know when you're gonna go.
Boom. Right on. All right. You cruised through that quickly. So, some interesting answers. Nothing
Yeah.
that took me by surprise. I don't know. You seem like maybe you might have a snake for a pet. I don't know. Not me, though.
Yeah, not me, man. I don't know. I've seen them. I've seen plenty of them. I've handled them, and but I just, some people get those pythons and they just start growing and growing and growing, and I'm like, man, that's probably not up my alley.
Yeah. My neighbor in Key West had a python that he had this long cage on the fence, which was this tiny little, basically the cheapest fence you can possibly get. Not necessarily particle board, but like the cheapest
Right.
fencing material you can get. And there was this big cage on the other side of this thing. And my kids are tiny at the time. And he had
Yeah.
about a 12-foot python in there.
Oh my
And I was
gosh.
just like, man, I don't
Yeah.
know, man.
Those things will
Like,
wrap you up.
I know. So my answers would be: would you have a reptile as a pet? No. And one thing you're afraid of: snakes. So
Yeah.
I'm not gonna have
I
one.
hear that. I'm afraid of snakes. Yeah, too.
I
So
mean,
I'll
I'm
avoid
not
it.
like I guess I am afraid of snakes, but I don't know if that would be my first answer. I would probably say heights too. Like,
Yeah.
so you're a former ranger, and
Yeah.
you didn't you jump out of airplanes?
All the time. Yeah, I was a jump master. I'd send my guys out the door, but I'd be sitting here lying if I didn't say every time the Air Force opened up that door, we were riding in that helicopter to jump. My heart was boom, 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 boom. But excuse me. I think it was a good thing though, because it kind of always kept me on point. I was always told, if you're, you get lackadaisical up there, that's when things go wrong. And so I think having that healthy fear really kept me on point. But yeah, I hated jumping out of airplanes. Scott Brown, you know him as well. He hated it too. A lot of guys hate it, but it's just, you got to do it, man.
Yeah.
And you're not going to chicken out in front of all your buddies. So
Did you do you think it's different, like when you look out of an airplane and you've got a parachute on and you're ready to go and you're in that situation versus like going to, have you ever been to one of those buildings in New York or one of those places where it's like got a leaning window like this and you kind of lean out there a little bit? Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you find a
yeah, I did that.
difference in the yeah, well, that scares me to death. Like that really really I mean, it like puts me super on edge to do that. I don't know why, but I think and I've never jumped out of an airplane, but I wonder if there's a difference between like the feeling that you get from like you say, you're always getting kind of, you feel it when you're about to jump out of an airplane, but then you get there and you're in a situation where just a second ago you were just walking around, and then you look out
Yeah.
over there and it's like, whoa. Like, do you feel a difference in those kind of two situations?
Yeah, they're kind of, but I still feel like that in the pit of my stomach. You look out and you see like, yeah, may have a parachute strapped to my back, but I'm still like, I feel like my heart's in my stomach sometimes. And I'll tell you what really bothers me is if you go to like a big hotel, whatever, 13, 14-story hotel, and you get up out on the balcony and you put your hands on the balcony, you lean over, you look, and it feels like kind of like light aluminum. And I'm like, man, what my kids were up here, or like, what if this thing were to break? And I kind of get that same feeling. So, yeah, I think just heights in general, Tom. I mean,
Yeah.
they just kind of both do it for me.
Did you see that video recently of Travis Pastrana jumping out of a airplane, no parachute, and he's jumping out
Yes.
with four other people or whatever? Man, that guy just
Yeah,
he did it so calmly and
I know.
effortlessly. Like, it didn't even seem
Yes.
like he seemed more comfortable without the parachute. Like, I don't. What is? How is a guy like that wired?
He is a wild man. I mean, obviously with all the stunts he does on dirt bikes and everything else, I mean, he's probably, obviously a risk taker, but man, I don't know that I could jump out without a parachute. We better have to do like about 1,000 rehearsals on that thing before I'd even have a slight bit of comfortability. But I did see that video. I remember thinking like, gosh, so many things could go wrong here. But he did it, and yeah, linked up with his buddies, and they strapped him up and landed safely.
So they
So
did strap him up, you think? Like, because he jumps out and he's not wearing anything. Like, I mean, he
no,
got shorts
nothing.
on or something, but and then, he does a couple of flips, he goes down,
Yeah,
and they come and get on top of him, and then that's the last us. Then it like backs way off and you see the parachute open, but I would think, like, I don't know. I would think that if you like were going to do that, you would have a harness on, and then you would get in there, clip, 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 and you'd be
yeah.
good. But he had nothing on. So what, he had to like put something on as he's free falling, you think?
I think what the way I saw it was the guy got kind of on top of him, and you're right, it does pan out, but if I'm pretty sure that they had strapped him up, but he didn't have like a pre-rigged,
No.
chest rig where they could just quick pop in and get him. So yeah, I may have to go back and look at that video. I just remember thinking that is insane.
Man, I'm just thinking, how hard would that be to put something on like that as you're free falling? I mean, the only comparison I can make is trying to put a rain jacket on when you're running, on plane. That's not
Yeah,
easy to do. I mean, the thing's flying
no, it's
everywhere.
not.
You're
Yep.
trying to get your other arm in there. I mean, that is like not easy to do. But anyway, that guy is he's a maniac, I guess, but a controlled maniac. Like
Yes.
he seems to only take risks that he's comfortable taking and understands. But I don't know. He was down in the Keys, and I guess he jumped off a building in Miami. He was doing something in the Keys, and then he went up to Miami, and he base jumped off something and broke his leg or something. I don't know.
Mm.
I mean, he's got to have a lot of injuries. I mean,
Yeah, I'm sure I got a Ranger buddy, Steven Travers. He does a lot of like he'll get a lot of base jumping or real big bridges, and he jumps out and lets his parachute go at the last minute, and I'm just like, you're wild, man. But yeah, definitely a lot can go wrong. And I remember, yeah, I think Travis broke his legs or something. It was pretty wild.
he looks like he's doing fine now. The miracle
Yeah.
of modern technology and surgery. Like, that's incredible that you could rebound from that and be able to keep doing it. Um, how long were you in the military?
So I was in the military just shy of 15 years. I medically retired. I had a few injuries that were requiring me to be on some certain medications, and where I was at in my time in my life, they offered me a medical retirement, and yeah, I decided that that was, kind of my best course of action. I'd been gone a lot with my family, so yeah, just shy of 15 years.
What was the decision making process for you to get for you to go to the military? How at what age did you kind of decide that it's something you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I joined a little bit later. I was in high school when 9/11 happened. Obviously, a lot of guys, felt the urge and need to serve after 9/11, and I did too. But I decided, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go. I want to get some knock some college out first. So went to college for a couple years down in Central Florida. Didn't really pan out. So, I think I enjoyed hanging out with my buddies a little more than I liked studying. So, kind of dropped out of college. Always knew I wanted to be in the military. My granddad served in World War II. I had an uncle, he was a special forces in Vietnam. So I said, man, let me give this military thing a shot. I asked for the shortest active duty contract they could give me. And yeah, did about 3 years. I said, man, I'm pretty good at this. And yeah, joined Ranger Regiment early on. Didn't really know what a Ranger battalion was, to be honest. Some kids come in, they're like, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL, I'm going to be a Green Beret, I'm going to be a Ranger. I was just like, hey, I want to serve, I want to pay off some of this college debt. And yeah, when I was in basic, Ranger recruiter came in and kind of did the overview, and I decided, hey, if I'm going to do this, I want to be with some of the best guys on the ground. So joined Ranger Regiment, and rest was history.
That's awesome. Two of my son's friends just went through Ranger School and
Oh, really?
successfully passed. And Jacob, shout out to Jacob and James. James is a little further ahead of Jacob, but he just went through SEER too, and then he is on his way to being a weapons specialist. And
Cool.
what a cool road that is to for the weapons specialist. I didn't realize what all you have to do, but basically you have to
Yeah.
like understand every weapon there is. It's
Oh,
incredible.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, they train on all the different weapons. It's that's really cool. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that is a very challenging road. Um, the like what you did and what they're doing now, because I'm learning from them. Like they would come and work out at my place and everything all through high school, and both of them are just they're the right kind of guy. Um,
Yeah.
but
Cool.
but yeah, that's cool. So and then where does the fishing uh come into play with was that something that I mean, you mentioned that you fished with your granddad in Mosquito Lagoon growing up, but
Yeah.
where like did you kind of circle back to fishing after your military career, or like Jamie Caldwell, like it was
Yeah.
something that you did on every break?
Yeah, that's a great question, Tom. So, kind of backtrack a little bit. I grew up in East Central Florida. So probably like I just tell people Orlando, people don't know about Geneva or Vito or that area. But, I was about 20, 30 minutes from Mosquito Lagoon, Indian River area. And I grew up fishing with my dad and my granddad, just inshore. We'd fish on little canoes and little John boats, and catching trout and redfish. So it was something that I just grew up doing. It was just normal for me. If I wasn't fishing, I was surfing. So I was just like a little salty kid. I just loved anything to do with the saltwater. So, I joined the army. I've always said like God's looked out for me because I was able to be near saltwater my entire military career, which is hard considering we're a land-based organization. But being in First Ranger Battalion in Savannah, I was right by the ocean and all the saltwater inshore creeks that run through Savannah and the Low Country. So got a boat after a couple deployments. I would just land fish, up into the creeks catching redfish and trout. But I think after like my second or third deployment, I got a little skiff, and started fishing. And so if I wasn't training or I wasn't deployed, I would come back home and I would go fishing. And I think that was like kind of my outlet for to decompress. And I still loved it. And, I had my son with me. I had my son very early on in my Army career. And I would take him fishing, or if not, I'd take other Ranger buddies. And yeah, it was just kind of like my way to decompress. And it was like I'd be on deployment, I'd be in Afghanistan reading Florida Sportsman, or streaming Saltwater experience, getting hyped up, getting ready to go. And I'd get back and I was on it. Obviously spend some quality family time as soon as I get off the plane. But when it was when I had some free time, I was on the boat and I was chasing trout and redfish. And the low country fishery is just incredible. Really enjoyed fishing there. Completely different from what I was used to growing up, especially Indian River, Mosquito Lagoon. Then you go to the low country where you can have, you're chasing flood tides. You got a 13-foot tide swing. So it took a little bit to figure that out, but really enjoyed my time there. Beautiful area and fishery. So yeah, I love it.
That flood tide fishing where the fish get up in that grass is really one of the coolest things. I've experienced that with my friend Perry Peace that's right out of Pawleys Island, South Carolina.
Yeah.
And it's like that's just the ultimate for what I've seen of the fishing in that type of area. And what happens is, if you've never been there, the tide gets up so high that it covers over the Spartina grass, and the redfish go to a place that previously was dry. And they are up there in this grass, and you are literally walking through this ankle-deep grass, and you can see them tailing, and you throw in there, and there's a ton of grass to navigate. And if you can get your fly to not get hung in that grass and present it in a way that it looks like the fish, or for the fish, they feel like they found it instead of it just crashing in on them, you can get one of the most incredible bites, like redfish biting on the surface on gurglers or shrimp flies or whatever. But that is literally one of the coolest fishing situations. Like you when you're doing it, it's like, this is a place that a fish shouldn't be. Like they shouldn't.
Right.
Just a couple of hours ago, this was dry mud.
Yeah.
And now this fish is up here just happy as he can be. But it's a very fleeting thing. It's not gonna last very long. And if you pick the wrong spot and there are no tailors up there, you probably missed it for the day, because there's not gonna be a lot of resetting, because the tide moves in and out so quickly there. I love that though.
Yeah, it's just like you said it, man. A couple hours earlier, this place was completely dry, and then that tide comes in, and those redfish are coming in, chasing those little fiddler crabs or mud minnows, and yeah, they got their backs out of the water, and they're just face down, and you kind of got to experience it. There's a lot of guys doing a lot of cool videos, a lot of great anglers up in that area, but and which they give you a great perspective on it, looking at it video wise. But until you experience it, it's definitely something to be seen. Yeah. Like you said, it's awesome.
So tell me about what you and Scott are doing, as far as taking veterans and other people from your community fishing.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Tom. So obviously Scott Brown, you know him well. He was on your podcast.
Yeah.
Green Beret, combat diver. Kind of me and him met through social media years ago, probably like 7 years ago. That's goes to show like the power of social media. And we ended up linking up, and we became really close friends and started fishing a lot. And, I was transitioning out of the military. He was doing the same. We both had our love for fishing. So we were like, hey man, like we were just fishing one day and we were kind of brainstorming, and we thought of Brave Waters Guide Service, because for a lot of like, I don't want to say it's the status quo for like former special operations guys getting out of the military, but a lot of those guys are either going to get their MBA or they're working for a Fortune 500 company or a contracting company. And we were like, hey, let's, what if we show these guys, because we both got our captain's license, what if we show that there's another outlet for service members when they're transitioning out of the military? You can pursue a career in the outdoors. So we kind of came up with a plan, and we started Brave Waters Guide Service, where basically we'll take transitioning service members, we'll mentor them, help with their captain's license. And, once they get established, we'll have them guide kind of under us to get their feet wet, maybe for a year or two. And then if they want to keep guiding with us, hey, great. If not, then they kind of go and do their own thing. But we're there to show them how to do it and show them how to do it the right way. And, we also looked at it like how, in Ranger Regiment or Special Forces or any soft community, you kind of like specially select and train people. It's not really for everybody. So we're looking for like a certain type of person, and nobody's excluded, but you kind of got to fit that mold that we're looking for. And so that was over a year ago. We started that, and it's kind of slowly morphed into Brave Water Solutions, which is another subsect of our company where we're providing maritime training to law enforcement, DoD, search and rescue. Scott comes in with a lot of his combat diver experience, and he can teach a plethora of information, because we basically said, hey man, we got a lot of info on a lot of this maritime stuff, but we're not using it. And so just through the right connections and a few people, we've been able to land a contract, helping out with maritime navigation, search and rescue. Scott's more on the VBSS, vehicle board search and seizure type side. But yeah, we offer guide service for transitioning service members. And then we also offer to DoD law enforcement, whoever needs it, search and rescue, maritime navigation, things along that nature.
That's really cool. I didn't know about the Brave Water Solutions. How long has that been going on?
Yeah, that animal's kind of like morphed pretty fast over the past, I'd say 6 months. But me and Scott have put a lot of work into that. And we kind of found that there was a need within the industry. And again, we have a lot of knowledge in that area. And we thought, hey, let's not let this knowledge just go to waste and see if we can help people out. So
That's
yeah,
cool.
it's been pretty good.
So the organizations or agencies or people that need that type of training, is that going to be mostly in Florida? Or are you finding that anywhere on the coast or even on inshore freshwater lakes? Like where's the need?
Yeah, great question. So right now we're kind of just looking around Florida right now. And like I said, we have already we've gotten a contract, and it's going to be Florida based, local to this area. But anything on the water, it could be a huge lake in South Carolina. It could be, somewhere where there's a dam or nuclear power, anything like that. Anything on the water. We're not trying to pigeonhole ourselves into, hey, just bays and tributaries, estuaries. But really, we want to be able to provide that training to anybody who's on a boat who is doing something, whether security, et cetera. But any body of water, we're willing to branch out.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like you would think that like the water agencies like the Coast Guard and the FWC and all of that, they probably have some of their own training, but I don't know. I mean, when do they look for specialty training situations like that for their people?
They do. There's a lot of grants out there for that. And, me and Scott have been plugged in with a lot of the law enforcement community. And basically, they do a lot of in-house training, but they're also open to, hey, having guys come in, teach a certain niche aspect of maritime operations. And so, yeah, there is a need out there for it, and sometimes it's easier for them to outsource that type of training. But yeah, they like you said, there is some of the in-house training that goes along with that. But we feel that we can provide a certain capability above and beyond just your regular train the trainer type of situation.
Yeah.
So it's the needs out there, and yeah, we're beating down that door.
Yeah, but beyond those two things, you just take regular people fishing too, right?
Correct. Yep. We're doing that too.
And so, tell me the area that you typically fish, or where, if someone was coming to a certain area, that you would be somebody that they might call, or Scott, or both, all of you, your whole service.
So me and Scott live about like 15 minutes away from each other. We're up here in the 30A, a little north of the 30A area. Choctawhatchee Bay is really kind of like our main base of operations. Scott's going to Port St. Joe, though, Apalachicola. I'm more fishing local here. And again, we still both have our own guide services going on at the same time. So, he's he's got a trip right now. He's out on the water with Push It Good Inshore, and I got a trip this afternoon with my Ranger Angler fishing charters. And so we're fishing these areas. But if somebody wants to come fishing with Brave Waters, likely you're going to encounter Choctawhatchee Bay, which is again kind of encompasses 30A, Santa Rosa Beach, and then you got Destin out to the west, then Fort Walton Beach. But we're more on the eastern portion of the bay, but we really encompass the entire bay, Choctawhatchee Bay.
That area is, man, it's so popular, and so many people go
It
down there,
is.
and it's so nice too. I mean, man, those
It's
beaches
beautiful.
there, the
Yeah.
beaches in that area are the whitest, cleanest, nicest beaches I think I've ever been to. One other that would be really close would be Naples. Like the Naples
Yeah.
beach, that one is like sugar. Like it's like the sand there is so fine, and it's like up in your area, it's just a little coarser sand, but still just amazing. Like that, those are some of my favorite beaches I've ever been on.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful up here. I'm so blessed and fortunate to call this place my home. Like you said, the water, they don't call it the Emerald Coast for nothing. The sand is amazing. The water is sometimes, I'm like, man, maybe I should take a trip to the Bahamas or something. But then I look out in my own backyard and I'm like, man, the water looks like the Caribbean. It's beautiful. And, it's just such a beautiful area, and it's really popular. I think the secret's out. I think you ask locals 20, 30 years ago about 30A, and they're like, man, there was cows on the beach. There wasn't anything over here, and it's really kind of blown up over the past couple decades. And yeah, people just love this area. So
They
secret's
do.
kind of out, but I don't blame them for wanting to come here.
One thing I always forget to do when I'm talking to somebody and they start talking about what they do and where they go is people have to wait until the end of the podcast to find out how to get in touch with you. So I don't want to do that now, but I do want to do that now. How does somebody, if they wanted to come, if they were going to the 30A area and anywhere, Santa Rosa, all of that stuff, even all the way over to probably Apalachicola, I would imagine they could call you
Yeah.
or Scott. But how would they get in touch with you or Brave Waters? Um,
Yes. Yeah, great question. So Brave Waters Fishing on Instagram, Facebook. We also have our website, bravewatersfishing.com. Myself, I have rangeranglerfishing.com. You can find me on Instagram at the Ranger Angler. And yeah, that's usually the easiest way, Facebook, Instagram, and just Google. If you just Google Ranger Angler Fishing, one of those will pop up. And it's same with Brave Waters.
mhm.
So yeah, appreciate you letting me plug that in,
Well, of
Tom.
course, yeah. I mean, people they're always. I get so many emails like, "Who should I go fishing with here or there?" And eventually, I'm going to put all the people that I've had on the podcast on a single page, where people can go back and listen to the episode, and
Oh, very cool. Yeah, good
then
idea.
actually have all their contact information, because you could. I mean, a lot of people are using it as a resource. But tell me about the fishing in October. In the very beginning of the podcast, you were talking about how the fall is the Super Bowl of your fishing and what you look forward to all year long. Tell me about what's getting ready to happen or what is happening right now as we're talking in the very beginning of latter part of September, the first part of October. What is getting ready to happen or what's happening in your area now?
Yeah. So again, like I had said earlier, it's my favorite time to fish, and it's really our Super Bowl of fishing here in the bay. So come fall, we get a really big push of big bull redfish, and I'm talking you could have schools of hundreds, just orange backs sticking out of the water, and they're just going after menhaden. But they're coming out of the ocean, coming into the bay to spawn, and they spawn all through the fall, and so they're so hungry and ferocious eaters. And again, like I said, it's not uncommon to see 135-inch to 40-inch redfish
Just like
backs out of the
just
water,
like the one that's
schooling
behind me
all.
right there. You see that one?
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
My son
Yep.
caught that one in Louisiana. Same kind of deal. Fall
Yeah.
fishing, big giant school. But that's awesome. And you see bird activity
Yep.
and then your water is clear, like super clear when that's happening, right?
It is, yeah, for the most part, depending on the winds and the direction out. But yeah, the water's fairly clear most of this time of the year, and my kind of tactic that I use in the fall is I got a lot of plugs tied on top water, maybe a few big swim baits. And usually I just get my clients in the boat. We take off. I'll kind of make big circles around the bay, and I'm looking for, those birds just diving, because those birds are diving, eating the menhaden. And usually when those birds are diving on those big schools of menhaden, you're going to find those big schools of bull redfish. And they're they're eating so much and just in such a feeding frenzy. I'll motor full throttle, like all the way up to them, just kill the engine. I tell my clients, hey, get up on the bow of the boat and then just start pitching into them. And it's not uncommon to have 3, 4, hooked up at the same time. It can get a little chaotic, but it's really run and gun type of fishing. I love doing it. And for a client who's never caught a redfish or never experienced catching a redfish, it's really a special time. I always joke, I say this time of year, you could throw a Coke can out there and they'd probably eat it. It's this certain time of year, you had mentioned Louisiana. That's why I'm kind of mentioning Louisiana as well. This is the only time I say, hey, I feel like we're kind of on par with Louisiana. Outside of fall, definitely not. There's no place like Louisiana. It's one of the best red fisheries I've ever experienced. But in the fall, it's pretty darn good here.
Yeah, man, I got to experience that with you guys one time, because I've seen the videos, and I just haven't been in that area at that time of the year to see it. But the videos that I see on Instagram and other places, just amazing. Are you able to stay on those schools for very long, or do they kind of push up and go down like our tuna
Yep.
or other things that we have? It seems like kind of a fleeting thing. You might catch 1 or 2 or hook up 4, and then they go down. And where do they go? I mean, sometimes it's hard to find them again. But what's your experience on staying on them or finding them again?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, that kind of depends on a couple things. I don't blame, hey, all the guides, we're all trying to put our clients on the best fish. And if we're in like a pretty populated area and those bull redfish start busting, it depends. If there's 7 other guides, which I'm friends with all the guides here, so it's not a knock on them. I love all the folks that fish here. We kind of all just motor up to them and we kind of, beat the heck out of that school. But usually everybody's hooked up. We get them to the boat. They may stay up for, 3 to 5 minutes. Then they're going to go down. And then it's back to, getting the binos out, hoping that they come back up. But they're not going to stay on the surface more than a few minutes. If it feels like an eternity when you're fishing them. But yeah, depending on how many people are picking off that school is going to really determine how long they're going to stay up and how long you'll see them up there. But usually once they go down, you can find them again. And it's just a matter of, running and gunning. Which way they're moving. They're heading east, they're heading west. It's kind of, like I said, I'm friends with a lot of the captains here, and we kind of have a group chat going, and hey, school moved to the east so many 100 yards, or hey, they're off at this point. This time of year, we're kind of all helping each other out. We want everybody to eat.
Right.
So yeah, it's kind of a team effort, but yeah, they will go down, and you just got to find them again.
Now, doesn't that same activity happen right along the beach? In certain areas, like, yep. I don't know about your area, but it seems like some of the videos that I'm seeing, it just looks like they're just right off the beach. I mean, that's the way it looks to me, but I don't know. I've never been there to do it yet.
Yeah, a lot of the Destin guides, I'm friends with a lot of Destin guides, and they'll get them right off the beach, just in huge pods. And, they're picking them off crystal clear water. And yeah, same thing happens off the beach. I really tend to rely more to the bay since I'm on the far eastern portion. The bay is roughly 40 miles wide. So for me to get out the pass and go out the beach, it's a decent run. So I don't really do that much. But yes, you can get them off the beach and you can get them in the bay.
Man, nice. That sounds awesome. I'd love to see that one day.
Yep.
And then you also fish for black drum a lot, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
we've been seeing more black drum in Flamingo and some of the other areas that we fish, and they're even a species that is included in a tournament. So we're
Really?
always, yeah, in the Herman Lucerne tournament, you can catch all
Oh
these
yeah, yeah,
different
yeah.
species, and then you can either catch a black drum or a black bass. One of my best fishing memories I've ever had is that Rich and I, we caught every species in this tournament except for a bonefish and one of those two species, right? So black drum
Yeah.
or black bass, which is a largemouth bass, a freshwater fish. And on the second day of the tournament, we had to go out, and we didn't know how to catch a black drum. Like we didn't see them very often, and when we did see them, we didn't pay any attention to them. And here we are in a competitive situation where we could win this tournament, and you feel kind of silly because like you've seen black drum a lot, but if somebody says, "Okay, go catch a black drum now," you're kind of like,
Yeah.
oh man, I don't know. I think we're going to strike out here. So we ended up catching a bonefish and a largemouth bass. That's how we ended up winning that tournament that day.
Wow.
Which to me was like, those are, I grew up in Tennessee catching largemouth bass, and then a bonefish was this exotic species that I had no experience with when I got down to the Keys, and I was learning all about it, and it just seemed like they were so far apart. But when you look at the Everglades National Park, you can catch a bonefish and a largemouth bass in the same day. But
Yeah.
it's cool. But I wanted to talk to you about the black drum because we're trying to figure out. We're seeing them more, and we're paying attention to them, and we're catching them some. But I want to be better at catching them. What's your strategy with the black drum? What kind of situations do you find them in, and what are your tactics that you use to catch them? And the ones that you're catching are way bigger than the ones that we're seeing. But I think that's common that the further north you go, the bigger the fish get. Fish are often the biggest in the northernmost portion of their range, which is interesting. I don't know if you've had that same experience, but that's certainly my experience.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, the black drum, I wouldn't say they're, every trip I'm catching black drum, but I do know how to target them up here. And a lot of the black drum that we're catching, some of these fish are, 15, 20-year-old fish. And they're like their cousin redfish. They're not, you're not going to see them up in the school of like 100 black drum. You may see a decent sized school of black drum, but I don't really sight fish for black drum. That's more of kind of a waiting game. I had a client 2 days ago. She fished with me last year. She caught a couple huge black drum, and then she caught another huge black drum. But the way I target those guys, Carolina rigged with a piece of shrimp, it could be a stinky piece of shrimp, live shrimp. And I usually find them around structure. So there's some rock pilings on the eastern portion. We got some river mouths that I'll target, but I usually find them in that like murkier water, kind of cruising around the structure. And the way I do it is just kind of a waiting game. I'll throw a Carolina rig out with a piece of shrimp. It's nothing fancy, but those black drum got a really great sense of smell. And I've
Mm-hmm.
found that if you get that, you throw out enough lines and you just let them sit and kind of marinate for a little bit, those black drum are usually going to find that piece of shrimp, or even heck, fish bites. If you don't have live shrimp, they'll eat it. But usually around structure, like I said, and kind of some of those little river mouths that we have over here. That's where I'm usually finding them, and super fun fish to catch. It's mixed opinion out there on the big ones. They'll say, "Oh, it feels like you're reeling up a kettlebell," but I've had quite the opposite experience. I've had some really good fights and good runs on light tackle with those bigger black drums. So I enjoy catching them. Yeah,
Yeah, they seem like a good target. And a lot of people
yeah,
do sight fish them. Also, like
yeah,
and I've seen them in
absolutely.
Louisiana, and a couple times I saw them in Louisiana, and the person I'm fishing with is just like, nah, we're not catching those. Like we're fishing all
Yeah,
artificial and everything, and
yeah.
they're just like, there's just you can sit here and fish for them all you want, but they're not gonna bite, which I found
Interesting.
kind of an interesting challenge. Like, but
Right. Yeah.
we're also back in those times that I'm thinking about. We're pre-fishing for a redfish tournament, and anything
Of course.
outside of fishing for a 27-inch redfish is a waste of time at that point.
Yeah.
Which is one of the things about tournament fishing that I don't like is that I don't think that there is a waste of time in fishing. Like now, I
Right.
look at it, I'm like, yeah, I mean, it'd be a great experience to learn how to catch those. I mean, they're a fish, they eat, they're obviously big. You could figure out how to catch them. And but when you're a tournament red fisherman, the last thing you want to do is catch a 25-pound black drum and have to fight that thing for a while, because every second that you're fighting that, you're not finding the tournament
Yeah.
winning redfish. So kind of glad that those days are over for me and I can explore new opportunities like the black drum. I want to fish in
Yeah.
places where I can sight cast for them and learn how to catch them better. But I think that it does come down to their sense of smell, from what everything that I've heard from everybody that I've asked lately, and that is the kind of the common thing, is that throw out a shrimp or something that
Yep.
they can find, and that seems to be the thing too, is that they need to be able to find it rather than crashing it into their, like a permit. Like you put it, you
Right.
don't necessarily want a permit to you don't want to throw it so far out in front of a permit that they just kind of happen upon it. You want them to see it kind of falling. And there are other fish
Yeah.
that you that's the idea, is like you want them to kind of discover it, but in a way that it's not like all of a sudden it's right in their face. It's like it's just kind of
Right.
falling in the corner of their eye. That's the
Yeah.
idea. And but it doesn't seem like that with
Absolutely.
the black drum. I mean, I'm no black drum expert by any stretch of the imagination. This is probably out of all the species we have in the Florida Keys, it's the one I encounter maybe the least. So I know the least about black drum. That's why I'm asking. Is just what common approaches are to them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I get it. Circling back to what, you and Rich in your tournament days, there's a significant amount of money on the line. And it's like, I've tournament fished locally here, and I know, like, man, the eye on the prize is that 27-inch redfish. And, you're so honed in on that, that's all that matters. And I never really thought about it that way. You said spending 5, 6, 7 minutes when every minute counts in a tournament, you're pulling in a big old black drum. Yeah, I could see where that would be a little bit frustrating, or you wouldn't be able to appreciate it as much. But yeah, up here, I'll be honest with you, I can't say that I have caught a black drum on artificial. Is there guys here that are probably doing it? Yeah, they probably are. But those black drum, they're just so slow moving until you hook up to them, and they're just kind of waddling along. You'll see them just when the water's clear, just kind of just moseying along the rocks, trying to pull stuff out of there. And that's kind of how I said, man, they're kind of just slow moving. This is the kind of the general area I keep seeing them in. Let me throw something stinky Carolina rigged. It's easy if the client, hasn't fished a ton. You can kind of shoot the shit for a little bit with your client and just kind of wait for him to hook up. But yeah, most success on shrimp or fish bites or Carolina rig. That's how I do it up here.
So you got redfish, black drum. I caught a largemouth bass with you.
Yes,
Yeah, what other fish or what other things go on at different times of the year for you? Are you fishing for other species, or what does the year look like for you? How do you break it up? Like you mentioned, the fall is the Super Bowl, but what happens the rest of the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah, so great question. I think it's your whole myriad of your regular inshore species minus, once you get to Central Florida and south, you're catching snook, which I wish we had snook. I've had a couple buddies catch some juvenile snook up here.
Really?
I have not. It's funny. I've even had buddies catch permit up here in the bay,
No
and it's
kidding.
like, man, are these fish lost? Like, I don't know. It's really weird. It's not an everyday occurrence, but
Like in shallow water
sometimes,
up there in the bay, they're catching permit.
yeah, yeah.
And
It's
are
not
they?
every day.
Do they when you have a catch like that? Are they fishing for another fish? Like are they red fishing and they catch a permit, or
Yeah,
are they pompano fishing, or like what's the most common kind of way to run into a permit up there?
yeah. I've known them just to be red fishing,
And so
and
they're like sight fishing redfish, or just throwing out shrimp on popping corks or something like that.
both,
Really,
both.
really, and you
Yeah, but
catch a
usually
permit.
the ones that I've seen caught, they've been, just fishing with shrimp on the bottom and catch the random permit. And,
Wow.
again, I don't want to pump it up like it's a once a week thing or
Right.
something, but every now and then you'll see a guy and he's like, got a permit, and we're
What
all like, wow,
have you ever seen
crazy.
any big permit caught like that?
Nothing huge, nothing like what you guys are catching down there. They're usually smaller ones,
Mm-hmm.
and then like I said, juvenile snook, which I'm like, I don't know how they're up here because it gets pretty cold up here.
Right.
But yeah, I
Interesting.
don't know. I don't have the answer. I'd like to maybe talk to a biologist about it. Maybe they could answer it.
Yeah.
You have a lot of good biologists and scientists and stuff on your podcast. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love to pick their brain on why.
Well, I mean,
Um,
who knows? I mean, I think that when the water's warm, you'll have fish move north, but once they hit a cold front, they either die or get pushed out,
yeah,
and so they're not going to establish themselves as a resident population. They're going to be more like moving through
right.
there because they just can't handle the wintertime temperatures up there, or maybe they can. Who knows? I don't know, but I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of different fish that when you find them, it doesn't seem like something that could be a target species. Like for us, it would be bluefish maybe. Like in the
Right.
Keys, we would see bluefish occasionally, and I would just think, well, that's just kind of weird. They must be just moving through. But as you see it year after year after year, then you start thinking, okay, well, it is at this time of the year, and it is generally in this type of a place. So on a nice day, I'm just going to run through there and see if I see any bird activity or whatever. And sure enough, you leave the dock and you have something tied on with wire and everything. You're like, okay, well, we could come across bluefish today. So
Yeah.
you've learned enough about these different species to where it's actually like you did actually target those. Like I could see how,
Yeah.
if you paid attention to those random permit catches and you're like, okay, well, we're going to be red fishing this way, but we're also going to have a rod out just on the bottom. Who knows? We could catch a permit. And then
Yeah. Great point.
if you did that like three years in a row, well, you're the resident permit expert up there, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's kind of fun to have any sort of kind of different species. What about big jacks?
Ooh, buddy. Yeah. So that's a great point. And that, you had asked me kind of what we target. So fall, you can target redfish year round here. And I'd say I don't want to say like I'm a subject matter expert on redfish, but if you look on my Instagram, most of my pictures are redfish or black drum. It's kind of just I know how to target them, and I always tell people like a redfish is a redfish, whether you're in the upper keys, lower keys, or you're in North Carolina or you're in Texas. Like they kind of all do the same thing. You just kind of got to adjust how you're going to target that fish. And so I feel like I know redfish pretty well, but redfish, trout, Spanish mackerel, and then in the summer, just like we get those big schools of redfish in the fall, we get huge schools of jacks, and those are so fun. I love catching jacks. Clients love catching them, and the jacks that we get up here are massive.
I
I
know.
remember catching them growing up in East Central Florida, and they'd be, 20 inches maybe. But these jacks up here are freight trains. We call them Choctawhatchee tunas up
Hmm.
here. And so I've always got a top water plug tied on in the summer. And they do the same thing. You'll just see them busting at the surface, motor up to them. They're usually in a feeding frenzy. Throw that top water out there and just start ripping it as hard as you can in there in that school. And it's usually fish on, and super fun to catch.
Do you see the jacks and the redfish mixed together sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah. This summer we had a school of about like 50 to 60 reds that we would see kind of every now and then mixed in with that school of jacks because they're all feeding on those
Right.
menhaden. And so it's not uncommon to see a school of reds mixed in with a
But
school of
man,
jacks.
both of those species are literally apex predators. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
a school of redfish is going to eat everything that is in front of it, but a school of jacks
Right.
could even be
Oh
more
yeah.
aggressive, and they have a little bit better mouth structure for eating like menhaden and stuff like that. I mean, a little bit larger teeth. They have got the
Yep.
crushers in their throat. They seem to be a little more aggressive. They got the fast swimming tail rather than
Yep.
the I don't know what you call that, the soft ray tail like a redfish or a bass or
Yep.
that seems like a slower fish. Even like a grouper has kind of that where you have like a tuna,
Right.
a jack, a bonefish, a permit. They have that forked tail, which typically is a faster fish. and a jack is
Right.
probably faster than a redfish, I guess. Maybe at least on
Yeah.
a longer stretch. A redfish might be like that tail structure, and the way that a redfish is built seems to be like more of an ambush kind of thing, like a largemouth bass, a grouper, those type of fish. So maybe on a short little 4 feet, it could probably match a jack, but I think over 100 feet, a jack is going to probably be much faster, which is kind of interesting to see them together. But I mean, where they're going to be where the bait is, right? Like they're going to be
absolutely.
they're going to be where the bait is. But I love those big jacks. I think that is
they're fun, and it's like you said, the fork tail, they're just designed and over thousands of years, probably. They're very aerodynamical and just packed into they're little freight trains. So not little, but they're big freight trains.
So what's a big jack up there? What I mean, like if you were to see one, could you see one 25 pounds, 30 pounds?
Yeah, you could. Absolutely.
Wow. That's a great jack.
Absolutely.
That's a great one, man.
Yeah.
And what time of the year does that happen? Fall?
That's summer.
Summer.
So yeah, and which is a good fallback because summertime fishing up here can be a little bit slower. It's hot, the fish are getting lethargic. So kind of, if the redfish aren't cooperating, we got Spanish mackerel in the summer, we got jacks that we can target. So it's a good fallback. But really in the summer, I had a buddy yesterday, he got into some, but we're going to see them start to move out once we get a good cold front.
Uh-huh. And then what happens with the cold front? Does that stir up other fish that you're fishing for?
Yeah, so like anything pre-front fishing, if I know that a cold front's coming through, I mean, obviously you got your barometric pressure dropping, the fishing's good. So fall's good for trout. We don't get those big gator trout like Peter Deeks is catching, over in like Mosquito Lagoon or Indian River, but or South Florida. But the trout bite can be really good. Pre and post front here, same with the redfish in the fall. So
right on. So you're fishing pretty much all year round. You got an incredible tourism area right there. You've built these different services up for all these different things, man. It sounds like you really got it going on. That's awesome, man. Good job.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah. So if you want to go fishing with Quinn, he's told you how to do it. Look up the Ranger Angler all over the place. That's your handle on pretty much all the different social medias, I think. And then the Brave Waters Guide Service. If a serviceman is interested in that, like what's the protocol there? Like if somebody listening is like that's me. That's what I want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Shoot me or Scott Brown. Again, like Tom said, Ranger Angler. Shoot me a DM. You can find my phone number too on social. Same with Scott. Scott's at Push It Good Inshore. He's the co-business owner. Just shoot us a DM, give us a phone call, and we'd be glad to kind of discuss further.
Awesome, man. That's great, man. I love to see you guys doing that. That's really a great opportunity for so many different people. All right, Quinn, that's awesome, man. Thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. I look forward to getting down to that 30A area again. And as I did before, as soon as I get down there, I'll give you a call, or beforehand, because you'll be booked up if I just give you a call when I get there. So I'm going to make sure I do it beforehand and book some time with you, and we'll go fishing again. That'll be awesome. Maybe it won't be a 30-degree drop this time.
Hopefully, fingers crossed.
Hey.
I appreciate your time, Tom. Yeah, it was great catching up with you. Great seeing you again. And really appreciate the opportunity.
All right. That's it. All right. We'll have another guest just like Quinn, the Ranger Angler, next week. So make sure you tune in. And that's it for this week. We'll see you later.